Hey guys, welcome back to Resilient Man channel. So I got a subject here that I want to discuss today for you fathers out there. um, Parental alienation. For those of you who are separated and or divorced and you have been a victim of or parental alienation is being perpetrated on you or has been perpetrated on you. I speak from experience, and so I'm going to share 5 tips with you for you men out there, you fathers that are dealing with and trying to cope with parental alienation with your children by your ex-wife. So this is an extremely painful thing to deal with as a man and as a father. It's just extremely hard, and it's hard to, I'm sure you can relate, it's hard to wrap your brain around the fact that the woman that you were previously married to, the mother of your children, would perpetrate this alienation on your children. That is the first and foremost thing that's hard to accept and is very painful. But also the fact that parental alienation by any parent, whether it's perpetrated by a mother on the father or vice versa on a father alienating the mother, it's unacceptable. And it's horrendous, it's hurtful and painful, and quite frankly, it is damaging to the child themselves. You know, children need a mother and a father. Both mother and the father play a very significant role in their development and in their confidence and who they grow into as an adult. So parental alienation is just a despicable, evil thing, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned. So if you're navigating that, if you're trying to cope with that, I hope these tips help you. You know, you're not alone. I mean, I'm actually a member of a few groups, and I hear and have been told through research that the percentage of estrangement with parental alienation, or especially when it comes to adult children as they've grown into adults, is as high as 27% in our society, which is absolutely terrible and absolutely despicable. Part of it, you know, there's many factors there. I mean, parental alienation can and usually is a big factor there. It's the big driving factor. But there's other things as well, as far as just our society and culture that play into this as well. So I'm going to get into these 5 tips. Guys, if you have thoughts, please comment below your thoughts, your advice, how you are coping if you are dealing with parental alienation, so maybe we can help some of the other men as well that are watching this. So let's start off with 5 tips if you have young children, as in under 18, they're not considered adults. So the first thing that I would recommend is educate yourself. Educate yourself on parental alienation syndrome to understand what exactly is happening and what you can expect. The more you know, the more you're going to better navigate and cope with this. You know, so do your research on parental alienation and on the signs and on the symptoms and things like that. So when you are dealing with your children, you can best recognize them. The second tip would be, don't blame the children. You know, it can be very hard if you're in a situation where your children don't want to come see you, and it just is, you know, it's like having your heart carved out of your chest with a spoon. It's absolutely terrible. I never had that situation myself. I found out years later that the alienation was going on. But that can be, you know, you have to keep in mind that children are often manipulated into believing lies about the alienated parent. And I had it explained to me almost like it's a cult. You know, your children unknowingly are a member of a cult of one, their mother. And they are being fed misinformation and or you are spoken about in a derogatory way, so they're constantly getting this spoon-fed negativity about you as their father. And that's their mother. They want to believe her. How could their mother lie to them? How could their mother manipulate and gaslight them? They don't realize it. So although you may be hurt and angry, try not to blame the children and, love them and such. Remember, it's almost like they are brainwashed or being brainwashed, and they're almost in a cult, if you will. Third tip for young children, continue to build a relationship in any way that you can. In my situation, we had our typical custody agreement and such like that, but I also did as much as I could as far as activities that the kids and I would enjoy, or going on vacation, or reading them a book at bedtime, or try to really focus when you have your children to maintain a positive, loving relationship with them, so they feel comfortable coming over. They don't almost look for an excuse to not come over and see you because it brings them down, or it's negative. You want the child to feel completely safe and secure with you. Daddy loves you, everything's good, that type of thing. The other thing that I recommend with continuing to build that strong relationship with your child, if you're being blocked and such, is, for me, I went to all their school events, their sporting events. That was something that their mother could not take away. She couldn't stop me from doing that. Well, it's kind of hard to say, it's, on one hand, your father is this bad person, and maybe even she's, they're saying that you don't care as a father when you're at all their events. You're at their sporting events and their school events and all that stuff, and you're there supporting them. Your children see that. They recognize that, and they, it doesn't escape them that, this, maybe the narrative that I'm being told is not correct, because Dad's here. Dad's at my events. He's here supporting me. So that would be tip number 3. Tip number 4 is, I would strongly consider therapy. Therapy with a good therapist that deals with grief and loss. Because that is what you're dealing with when you are suffering and coping with parental alienation. It is loss. It's loss of time and the relationship with your children, and then there's tremendous grief that comes along with this. You need somebody to talk to you about that. You need to be able to talk that out and work through that, because in this type of situation, the grief and loss can almost be worse than a death, because at least with a death, the person's no longer here and you can grieve and mourn, but you understand they're no longer here. With parental alienation, obviously the children are still here and you're just being blocked. So I would strongly recommend some counseling, some therapy where you can deal with grief and loss and help you work through that and actually navigate that. The last tip, tip number 5, is I would strongly recommend that you keep a record of any changes in your child's behavior and speak with people who know your children well. Again, going back to the school events, if there's a parent-teacher conference or anything like that, make sure you're there and you document and all of that good stuff. What you want to do is, worst case scenario, prepare for court. You want to create a timeline of the alienating parent's actions and be prepared to present it at court. Now, going to court over parental alienation It's hard. It's hard to prove extremely, but if you can show through documentation that there have been definite changes in your child's behavior and their behavior towards you, and you know, if you're able to trace them back to specific instances of blatant parental alienation, that may help you in court, especially if you have a good attorney. So that's what I would recommend for you guys, you fathers out there with young children or children that, under the age of 18 are not considered adults. So let's talk about you fathers with adult children who parental alienation was perpetrated on you and they're estranged. Your adult child or children are estranged. So I will tell you a little bit about my situation. So my daughter is 20 years old, and she has been estranged for just over a year. I do not know why. Just over a year ago, she went MIA and has had no contact whatsoever. And prior to that, we were actually, in a period where we were trying to establish more of a close relationship and that type of thing. And then she just went MIA. And then I also have a 16-year-old son. My son and I, we have a very strong relationship. We are in contact almost daily. We see each other once or twice a week. Strong father-son bond. It's getting stronger all the time. So I've got that dynamic. The reason why for that dynamic, and some of you fathers might be able to relate to this, is my daughter was about 4 or 5 years older than my son, and so therefore the parental alienation that was perpetrated on her really took root. And unfortunately, I didn't realize it until years later. And so that is my personal situation. I tell you that, I share that with you because I can relate to your situation if you have been a victim of parental alienation. Your children are now grown, and now you're struggling to have that relationship with them because so much damage has been done, and they have chose to estrange themselves. That can be excruciatingly hard. So hard, because you want, like my situation, I have a great loving relationship with my son, and then his sister, she has just gone her own way. And my personal belief, if you will, is I can trace it back to the damage that was done through parental alienation. But I wanted to share that with you, number one, because I can relate to what you're going through. And what I've had conversations with my son about it, and he's like, Dad, I don't know why she's doing this. And, I have loved her from afar, let's say, and I continue to reach out from time to time. But she's an adult, she's 20, and so I'm giving her space and that time. And that's something you may want to do with your situation if your adult child is now estranged. So let me share a couple tips, 5 tips here when dealing with an adult child situation. So let's start with tip number 1. Tip number 1 would be threats. If you are being threatened with a restraining order, or your gifts are being returned, things of that nature, you might want to step back. You might want to just give them some space and stop trying to reach out for a while, because that is a volatile situation, and the damage that you're trying to break through there is it's probably just the case of timing, and it would behoove you to not force the situation, especially if they're threatening you with a restraining order. Tip number 2 would be hostility. If your child is consistently hostile towards you and threatening when you reach out, that's another thing. I mean, in some cases, yeah, we've got communication, but it's hostile. That's another situation where, you might want to step back, give them some space, and actually stop contacting them for a little while, because that might actually improve the situation to let things calm down and let them process, if you will. The third tip, ignoring. If your child is ignoring you, over time or year after year, it might be time to stop reaching out. It might be time to realize that for whatever reason, they just don't want you in your life, in their life right now, as excruciating as that is, but you can't force the situation. Personally, a card here or a message through a family member, hey, I hope you're doing well, love and miss you, lets them know that you're still on my mind and I still love you. So, need a quick drink. So, the fourth tip deals with mental health. It may, in many instances, it's actually better for your mental and emotional health for you to step back and give them that space that I just described, because getting that rejection over and over and over again can really take its toll on you mentally and emotionally. So give it some time, give it some space. And the last tip that I would share or suggestion was sometimes, letting go. Maybe they will come back around when they get a little bit older and, they've had time to process and heal and are ready to reach out to you again and actually establish contact and some relationship. So that's what I would recommend for you fathers that have adult children who are estranged, and it's in large part to parental alienation. I'm not saying giving up, and it doesn't make you a bad person or a bad man or bad father if you step back and step away. But you have to keep in mind, this may not be forever. Many adult children come back, and you have to give that time and space. Again, going back to what I mentioned earlier in this message, you have to keep in mind, they were brainwashed. They were manipulated, and that took root. And, that is a huge factor, but it plays into your current relationship on why they have estranged themselves, because of the parental alienation. So even if the relationship is strained or it's non-existent, you can continue to love them and care about your children in other ways. The fact of the matter is, as hard as it is, as painful as it is, life must go on, and you must continue to live and continue to do the things that you want to do and such. One of the things that I've shared with my daughter through messages and such is that, look, I'm not estranged from you. I love you and I miss you and I hope you're doing well. You have decided to estrange yourself from me. The door is always open. And personally, I think that's one of the best ways that you can leave it. So, guys, that's what I wanted to get on and share today. I feel this subject, parental alienation, is such a important subject in our society and our culture today, specifically with you as a man and as a father. It is epidemic. It's horrendous. It's evil as far as I'm concerned. And the damage that has been perpetrated is really on the children themselves, because they've been robbed. They've been robbed of a healthy relationship with both the father and the mother. And it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. So, guys, I wanted to get on and share these tips, share a little bit about my experience, and hopefully give you a little bit of encouragement. Keep fighting the good fight. Be hopeful. And, just remember your value. Remember that that this has been perpetrated on them and it's been perpetrated against you. Don't waste your time on anger. Focus on just loving your child from afar. So, guys, I hope this helped. Hope you're enjoying Resilient Man and the content. Check out the other content here on Resilient Man channel. We got a lot of stuff. I've made some other videos on parental alienation or things of that nature. Things I think that if you are dealing with this, if you're trying to cope, go check it out because I believe it will help you. Like and subscribe to Resilient Man channel. And guys, even with your children, young or adults, and with this situation, know your worth. Protect your peace.